I'm currently on vacation at a pretty fancy hotel. And you know how these places go, everything's top-notch, from the food to the service. But today, two things happened that seriously made me question humanity. I mean, I know people can be inconsiderate. But the level of entitlement I witnessed was on another level. So, let me set the scene. It's breakfast time, and I'm seated at this cozy little table near the buffet. I'm just minding my own business, enjoying a croissant and some coffee, when I notice this family at a nearby table. There's a couple, their kid, and what looks like the grandmother. Now, I wouldn't have paid them much attention. Except they were literally stacking food on their table like it was going out of style. And when I say stacking, I mean they had an entire mini buffet going on at their table: ham, cheese, croissants, sausages, fruit, you name it. At first, I thought, okay, maybe they're just really hungry. But then I realized they weren't even touching most of it. Like, they had piled their plates so high, but half of the food was just sitting there, untouched. Meanwhile, people were going up to the buffet and finding empty trays where the food used to be. I overheard one guy ask a staff member if they'd be refilling the ham. And the poor staff member just looked overwhelmed. Probably because this family had taken half the buffet with them. I couldn't stop staring at the mountain of food on their table, especially since they were barely eating any of it. The kid was picking at a croissant, the grandma was slowly nibbling on a piece of cheese, and the couple was just chatting away, not even looking at the food they had hoarded. I was honestly getting irritated just watching them. Like, who does that? There was no way they were going to finish all that food. And I knew it was all going to end up in the trash. Sure enough, when they finally got up to leave, their table was still covered in plates of untouched food. I felt this deep sadness. Deep sense of disgust just washed over me. I mean, the waste was just overwhelming. I kept thinking about how many people out there can barely afford to eat. And here were these people just casually throwing away more food than some people see in a week. It wasn't just wasteful, it was disrespectful to everyone else who might have wanted a croissant or some ham that morning. But that wasn't even the worst part of my morning. Oh no, it got worse. After breakfast, I decided to grab a drink from the beverage station. This hotel has this super fancy setup where they've got these jars built into the machine for juices and water, and it automatically refills the jars when you put them back. It's a pretty slick system, and usually, people just fill their glasses and pop the jar back into the machine so it can refill. So, I'm standing there, filling my glass with orange juice, when this woman walks up. She doesn't just fill a glass, though. No, she takes the entire jar of water out of the machine. I figured maybe she's got a big group at her table and needs to fill up several glasses. Fair enough, right? I go back to my table, sip my juice, and relax. A few minutes go by, and I notice the water jar is still missing. People are coming up to the machine, looking confused because there's no water. I start looking around, and I spot the woman who took the jar. But here's the kicker, she's not even in the restaurant anymore. She's walking out, heading for the elevators, with the jar in hand. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there thinking, did she just steal the jar? Who even thinks of doing that? I mean, it's one thing to take an extra pastry or something, but to just take the entire jar of water back to your room. It's beyond rude. I got up and found a staff member. And when I told her what happened, she just looked at me like she couldn't process what I was saying. She went out of the restaurant with the jar. Oh, really? The staff member kept repeating things like she was trying to convince herself that this was actually happening. She eventually rushed off to the kitchen, probably to figure out how to get another jar of water for the machine. As I sat back down, I couldn't help but wonder what the heck is wrong with some people. How do they just not care about anyone else? It's like they're in their own little bubble where the rules don't apply to them. I kept thinking about how I was raised to respect others, not to waste food. and to think about how my actions affect the people around me. But clearly, not everyone got that memo. This whole experience just left a bad taste in my mouth. Not because of the food, which, by the way, was amazing, but because of how casually some people can be so disrespectful. It's like they don't even consider that their actions have consequences. Not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. And what's worse is that they probably don't even realize they're doing anything wrong. I'm trying not to let it ruin my vacation. But honestly, it's hard not to feel a little disillusioned when you see stuff like this. I keep thinking about the staff who have to clean up after that family, throwing away all that wasted food, and the people who wanted a glass of water, but couldn't get one because someone decided they needed the entire jar for themselves. I guess I'll just try to focus on the positives of this trip and let go of the frustration. But man, people really do suck sometimes.